Hello, I'm Monty. Today we're going to talk about tips and tricks on how to audition for a play. I've been a director. I direct 2 or 3 plays a year still, and I've also a magician with thousands of hours on stage in front of live audiences as a magician. So thought I'd pass on some of the tips to you on how to audition for a play. Let's start with number one, the casting director, or usually the director if it's a smaller play. They are responsible, of course, for picking the cast. But the main thing I'd like you to learn is, get from this, is don't feel bad if you don't get the part, because most of the time you won't. The casting directors or the directors are generally looking for very specific things, and it's not unusual that you wouldn't qualify for these. You wouldn't be the person they're looking for. So really don't be surprised. If you keep auditioning, you will get one. That's down the road. It does always happen if you keep auditioning. We'll talk a little bit about the directors and what they're looking for, but let's start with that. Tip number one. Get to know the director. Now, what do I mean by that? Obviously, if you haven't had the opportunity, you can't really meet them in person ahead of time or something like that. But with today's technology, it's pretty easy to join their Facebook group, check them out on YouTube, things of that nature. Read through some of their articles. Most casting directors have posted little articles about plays they've done and things of that nature. And if you get to know the casting director a little bit, it'll give you a much better idea of what they're looking for in an actor. I will tell you, most of the time, it's not really what you what you would suspect. I know as a director myself, some of my main concerns have always been, well, obviously the character. You want to look at the character and, well, make sure that they fit the part. Do they physically look like the part? Do they, have, the kind of the personality of the part? But that's really not the important things. It's kind of secondary. What the director is usually looking for is actually very complex. They are looking for character-specific things. But most of the time, I'm looking for somebody. My first question is, well, do they look enough like the part that they can play the part? And then my biggest concern is always the same. Do they have the personality? Are they easy to work with as an actor? Will they adjust? Will they follow directions? If I tell them to try it a different way, are they willing to do that? Things of this nature. Probably the main thing I'm looking for is an actor that is easy to work with and will work with me on shaping them into the character that we're trying to play. I want to see things like, how do can they change characters? For example, can they, if I tell them do it bigger, will they try? That means put more emphasis on the parts and things like that. If I tell them that was good, but can you try it playing sad this time? Or, oh no, that was nice, but why don't you try acting a little happy this time for that particular part? Or throw me a little emotions in there that says you're really paying attention to a character. You're really looking for things like, will they respond for stuff like this? Not particularly as much as can they be that specific character, but can they work with you so that between the two of you, they can develop into that character. Okay, tip number 2. Read the audition notes very carefully. A lot of people just kind of skim through the audition notes and say, oh, I'll go try out for that part. But it's very important to read the audition notes, because sometimes, a lot of times, the casting directors will put in there very specific things that you might need to be able to do. For example, they might say come in with 2 monologues prepared, or they might say be prepared to read sides from the script. Things of this nature. If you follow that, or they might say I'm looking for somebody that can play ages 40 to 80, or they might say very specific things like you'll have to change the color of your hair. Your hair will have to be blonde for the play, or you never know what. But you always want to read the audition notes in very good detail before you go, so that you're more prepared to do the things that the casting director might be looking for. Tip number 3, getting to know the play. This is a very important part. Quite frequently you'll be auditioning for plays or parts that you've never auditioned for before, or you may not have even heard of the play. So it's very important, if you can, try and get a copy of the script. Sometimes you can find them online for free. Other times you'll have to buy them. You might be able to borrow them from the local library, or from the theater itself. A lot of times you can go into the theater and say, hey, I want to audition for this part. Can I borrow one of the scripts for a few days to study it? And frequently they'll actually let you sign out for the scripts, because they usually have several copies because they're putting on the play. A lot of times they'll do that. They'll make you sign out for it, of course, and they might make you leave a deposit. But if you get it back, or if you get cast, then of course you'll have a script, or you'll get your deposit back. You can also find them online, buy them online. Very important, though, to read the script, because otherwise you don't know what the play is all about, you don't know what to do. You really need to do that and understand the characters that you're playing, or that you'll be auditioning for, plus the other characters, because it's not unusual for a casting director to, you'll go in and audition for one part, and it's not unusual for a director, I've done this many times, say, yeah, I've got somebody that's a little better for that part, but would you be willing to do this part also? Or do this part instead? And if you haven't taken the time to read and study the play, you don't know, and you should know up front, because it's not an unusual request. Tip number 4 is audition for the right part. After you've studied the play, it's important that you pick the part that fits you. There'll be a lot of characters there. Try to step back from yourself and ask yourself, well, what should that character look like? What should that character be like? How would that character stand? How would that character talk and speak? Because these are important. You really need to know the character and make sure you audition for the right part. For example, they may talk in an accent that you simply can't reproduce. Or they might talk in an accent that, wow, I can do that easily. So you'll know. It's very important that you actually study the characters and make sure that you are auditioning for the correct part. And again, don't feel bad if somebody comes in that's better for the part. You don't always fit the part exactly as the director has it visualized in his mind or her mind. It may be different from the way you're seeing it, and you won't necessarily know that. So just give them the best audition you can. Tip number 5. This one's kind of obvious, but it's really important because so many people don't do it. You want to be professional. You don't want to go in trying to impress the world. Go in a very professional manner, much like you would in a job interview, because actually that's what it is. So you want to be very professional. Go in, try to get there at least 15 minutes early. Introduce yourself, fill out any paperwork that you need to fill out, and then quietly go down and get ready for the audition. Don't be too talkative. Don't pester the crew asking a bunch of questions, because they're busy and they don't really have time for that. They'll obviously be courteous and try and help you, but they don't really have time for that. And be yourself. Don't try and be the character at first. Let them know how you are. Be pleasant. Be very nice, cooperative. And again, don't spend a lot of time in conversation. Don't engage in a lot of conversation that's unrelated to what's going on. And usually, I don't even suggest spending a lot of time talking to other cast members. Of course, be polite. Some conversation is fine. But mainly go in, get the material. They'll frequently have material there for you to study. Find a quiet little spot and sit down and study. Read the script, read the material they hand you, and you're good to go. Tip number 6, bring a headshot. I know in the old days this was common. Everybody did it. And nowadays so many people want to say, well, yeah, it's online, or they show it online. But what you want to do, even in the modern world, is bring in an 8x10 headshot. Do not expect to get it back. And when you fill out the forms, just attach it with the forms that you turn in. This is much, much more important than an electronic one, because quite frankly, as a director, basically what happens is they may be going through a lot of cast members, and if they don't know you personally, they're going to forget who's who. But if they've got a picture, a nice picture laying there with the application, it helps them know who's who. It helps them, it makes you look more professional. And it also helps after the auditions too, because they'll sit there and with every audition, they'll look at that one, they'll say, oh, this person is impressive. That's a neat picture. And you know, with those highlights or those features, I think they can do the part very easily. Where if there is no picture, they'll say, who was that person? Oh, I think they said an electronic image, but we'll look at that later. Let's go through the rest of these. Kind of the thing that'll happen. They're trying to do this quickly. They will take a lot of time usually to study all the characters, but they'll weed out some of them very quickly. Some of them very quickly will go on a maybe callback list. Usually what they do is very quickly an acting director will limit it to just a small handful of people that they're really considering for the part. And those people, the more impressive your stuff looks, the better your chance of getting in. So a headshot today is very important. Tip number 7, dress appropriately. A lot of controversy about this, and it really varies, and you can obviously try different things. As a director, preferably what I like to see, and I'm not like every director is different, but preferably what I like to see is somebody who comes in, dresses semi-professional. You should look nice. I prefer, I would recommend a business casual attire. I don't really like to see people come in dressed as a character. That's not appropriate to me. I don't like to see people come in for an audition that from the moment they come in the door are that character. I prefer to get to know the person individually and see the kind of person they are, so I know how easy they'll be to work with, and then later when they're actually doing the audition, see them slip into character, and I know that at that point they can do what I want to do, instead of relying specifically on the way they look when they come in the door. Because it's very important to me as a director that I know that they will work with me. Very, very important. Probably of all the things, it's probably the most important thing on the list. It eliminates the drama in plays, and it allows me to shape the play as a group and to the way it actually belongs, instead of trying to work around one individual. Learn a monologue. This is tip number 8. Learn a monologue. In the olden days, this was pretty much required, and I still recommend it. Again, every director is different, but it's not unusual to walk up for an audition and it's your turn, and the director to just turn around and say, okay, what you got for me? I've seen that happen. I've never really done it myself because I'm not a big fan of that, but a lot of directors do. What have you got for me? and they expect you to do something right away to show that, hey, you're talented. Uh, that's important and done by many directors. Not something I do, but you should be prepared for that. What I recommend is always have at least 2 monologues in your arsenal that are always ready to go. So pick the best 2 monologues you can find. Keep them short, couple 3-minute monologues. They don't need to be long. And be prepared to do those in character. I recommend 2 different types of characters. Don't make both monologues seem the same, because you want to show them what you can do, and that you can be the character that they're visualizing. So pick one monologue that has one type of character, maybe an excited character, and pick another monologue that can maybe play a very sad or serious part. What you actually pick is not as important as the fact that they contrast. They're different, to show that you can indeed play different characters. Memorize those. The reason for the second monologue is a lot of directors will give, if you do a good first monologue, they'll give you a chance to do another one. I actually would recommend that, sure, let me do a monologue for you. Do your best monologue. And then at the end, say, would you like to see another one in a different character? And many times, probably most of the time, they'll say, oh yes, please do. Because they want to see what you can do. And these monologues do not have to be the character that you're casting for. Now, if you can do one that is a character in the play, fine, but make sure you can do it, know the lines. Don't try and do it off the script. If you know the lines ahead of time and had rehearsed it, by all means, make that one of your monologue. Not necessarily your first monologue. I would give them your best monologue first and say, I can also do the monologue from the person in this play if you'd like to see it. And then if they say yes, go right into it and give it the best shot that you can. Don't worry about if you blow it. The monologue might not be exactly what they're expecting, but they'll realize that you have studied the play, that you are interested in the character enough to put some effort into trying to produce a good monologue for it. And if you make little mistakes in it, don't worry about it. Don't apologize for it. Do like you would on stage. Keep going, because they would prefer to see you recover from a mistake than to sit there and try and explain why you made a mistake. Tip number 9. This is a hard one for a lot of actors, but any actor can do it with some practice. Practice code reading. Now, there's a little bit of difference on what a code reading is, but primarily, most directors look as a code reading is somebody who can read a script or a side or something like this that they have never read before, and not only read it nice, but actually put a little bit of character into it. Some simple gestures, some simple facial expressions, some things of that nature. They realize you're going to be looking at the script, but read it slow. Well, not slow, but don't read it fast. Don't just blah, 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 blah. Try and read it as the character would be saying it, or as you visualize the character would be saying it. If you've had the chance to rehearse something, that'd be fine. It's not unusual for a director to hand you a side from a play, for example, a small page from the play that that he's taken out of the play, he or she, and ask you, okay, read this part. And they might even have 2 or 3 actors up on stage reading this different parts at the same time. Read it, put your voice into it. If you can slip into the actual character, that would be fantastic. But mainly try and read it, kind of understand it. They'll usually give you a chance to read through it once before they actually have you come up and do it. But try and be able to put some emotion into it. If you think the person's feeling sad at that point, let them see it in your face. Let them see that you can adjust or will try and adjust to the part. And the final note, number 10, is after the audition. What do you do after the audition? Well, you really don't know if you've got the part or not. Sometimes you won't know for 2 or 3 days. Sometimes directors don't call you and let you know at all, which of course means you didn't get it. Occasionally they'll take callbacks. But the main thing is to be aware that chances are you won't get it, especially if they have a big turnout for people auditioning. Give it your best shot, do the best you can, and if you don't get accepted, don't feel bad about it. It's a complex thing, picking the right individual for the right part, and it could just be a little something that you says, well, I'd like somebody who smiles a little differently, or you never know what. But so many different things that just don't feel bad. It does not mean you're not a good actor. It just simply means you did not fit the vision that that director had for the part. And on your way out the door, don't apologize for your any mistakes you made on stage. Hey, that's fine. They expect you to make mistakes. They realize you've never studied this particular play before, and they'll overlook the mistakes. What they won't overlook is somebody that they think is so worried about impressing them that they're not going to play the part well. What they want to see is somebody that'll give it their best shot and that will work with them. So do the best you can. Be professional on your way out. Tell them thank you for considering me. If I don't get this one, I'd love to try again for your next one. Something along that nature, and just mainly keep them in, you want them to think of you as a professional. Hope this helps. If you've enjoyed this, please hit the subscribe button, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment. I would really, really love to hear back from you. Tell me what you like, what you don't like, what you would like to see more of. And hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching.